Chapter 2. It's been on the floor. The dining room was on the first floor, overlooking the back garden. The sun had almost set, so Grandma had to switch on the light. Ellie sat down for her dinner, and she wasn't pleased. No, she wasn't. This sausage is too small, Ellie moaned. The beans shouldn't be touching the chips. Now the chips will be all soggy, and these beans are all clumped together. Yuck! It tastes lovely, Grandma said as she tucked into her dinner. Just try some. Ellie glared down at her dinner plate. She took her fork and started stirring her food round and round. Soon it was one big blob on her plate. Don't play with your dinner, Ellie, Grandma said. I don't want these smelly beans, Ellie said. I'm sure they wouldn't want you if you asked them, Grandma said calmly, but you'll still have to eat them. And I don't want these stinky chips, Ellie sulked. And I don't want this teeny-weeny rotten sausage. Grandma bent down to tickle her black cat, Jolly, behind its ears. Pretty jolly, good jolly, Grandma murmured. You'd eat your dinner, wouldn't you? Ellie picked up her plate while Grandma wasn't looking. Could she do it? Should she do it? Jolly, I'm beginning to think Ellie is quite a young madam, Grandma said, still not looking up. This will show Gran, thought Ellie. She lifted up Grandma's lace tablecloth and flung everything on her plate under the table. You're a good cat, aren't you, Jolly? Grandma said as she stroked Jolly's neck. You wouldn't throw your food on my good carpet like some other I know. Ellie stared in amazement at Grandma. How had Grandma known that Ellie had thrown her food on the floor? The lace tablecloth reached down to the carpet. Grandma couldn't have seen her, could she? I'm not going to pick it up, Ellie said, and folded her arms across her chest. Grandma sat up. Pick what up, dear? Grandma asked. My dinner. Pick it up from where, dear? Grandma said. The floor, Ellie replied. But your dinner isn't on the floor, dear, Grandma said. She prodded a chip with her fork and popped it in her mouth. Look for yourself, and if you don't believe me. Ellie looked down at her plate. It was empty. She bent over and lifted up the tablecloth. The sausage, the chips, and every single baked bean had all vanished. Ellie sat up again. Well, it was... Ellie stopped speaking as she stared down at her plate. The food was now back on it. Ellie blinked twice. The food... She had to be seeing things. She lifted up the tablecloth and looked under it again. Then she looked back at the dinner table. The chips, the beans, and the sausage were all back on her plate, arranged neatly. How did you do that? Ellie asked. I threw my dinner under the table. Ellie frowned at her plate. Grandma couldn't have picked it up, everything off the floor that fast. It doesn't matter. I'm still not eating it, Ellie said. It's been on the floor. Grandma looked at Ellie very carefully. My dear, Grandma said at last, I've met some bad-mannered, unpleasant characters in my time, like that dreadful dragon who started living at the bottom of my garden and scared all the birds away, and that nasty, greedy troll who tried to eat me because I beat him at chess. But I have to say that you are the rudest, most disagreeable child I have ever met. In short, Ellie, you're a brat. Does that mean you're sending me back home to Dad? Ellie said hopefully. No, it does not, Grandma replied. Grandma frowned down at Jolly and asked the cat, Jolly, what should I do to teach this child a lesson? Meow, meow, Jolly replied. Jolly is just an ugly, stupid cat, Ellie said, almost in tears. She's as frumpy and dumpy as you are. That does it, Grandma said. My girl, I'm going to teach you a lesson you'll never forget. We will read chapter 3 now.